Thanksgiving was meant to be about gratitude, but as I sat at the head of the dinner table, watching my wife Cassandra giggling with her companion Harriet, I felt anything but thankful. The evening had been going well enough. Our house was filled with the warm aroma of roasted turkey and cinnamon-spiced apple pie. The clinking of glasses and the hum of conversation among family and friends filled the air. The dining table was set with a golden autumn centerpiece, candles shimmering in the dim light, giving the perfect ambiance for a pleasant family gathering. And then Cassandra opened her mouth. "Nothing to be thankful for in bed," she blurted out, loud enough for the entire table to hear. Harriet nearly choked on her wine before breaking into laughter. The rest of the table went silent for a split second, long enough for me to feel the weight of their uneasy gazes. Then Adam, her brother, cleared his throat awkwardly as Cassandra laughed, clearly enjoying her own joke. I laid my drink down, carefully, catching her eyes. I felt my jaw tighten, my fingers contracting around the stem of the glass. I had become used to Cassandra's sharp tongue, the way she liked to make me the butt of her jokes. But this was different. It wasn't just a thoughtless word thrown out in private, something I could brush off and pretend never happened. No, she wanted an audience. She wanted to entertain them at my expense. The worst part? I could feel their eyes, on me, waiting to see how I'd react. I breathed slowly, plastering a smirk onto my face, the type that didn't quite reach my eyes. It was a ploy I had perfected over the years, playing along to keep the peace, to avoid turning a tiny embarrassment into a full-blown dispute in front of company. Yet inside I was furious. The laughter around the table was cautious, courteous, as if they were trying to judge whether it was appropriate to laugh. Harriet, of course, leaned into it, poking Cassandra gently. "Oh, come on, Cass, give him some credit. Maybe it's just a rough season." More laughs, more eyes flashing in. My direction. I felt my heartbeat hammer against my ribs. My hands curled into fists beneath the table, concealed from view. I should let it go. That's what I always did, right? Smile, nod, brush it off like it didn't sting. Like it wasn't the 100th time she'd taken a shot at me in front of others. But something in me snapped. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't bang my fists on the table or demand an apology. No, that wasn't my style. Instead, I lifted my glass, took a slow sip of my drink, and locked eyes with Cassandra. She was still beaming. But there was something else in her gaze now, something flickering behind the amusement. She had expected me to chuckle, to shrug, to play the role of the submissive husband she had fashioned over the years, but I didn't. I let the silence stretch between us, my smirk unshakable, my stare steady, and in that silence, I made a decision. I wasn't letting this one go. Not this time. For the rest of dinner, I barely talked. I listened as Adam tried to alter the subject, bringing up some crap about football. I nodded at the proper places, even pretended to grin at one of his poor jokes. But I wasn't really there. My mind was reliving Cassandra's words over and over again, the smug way she had spoken them, the way she had basked in the hilarity that followed. I stole a glance at her every now and then, watching as she continued to enjoy the night, absolutely blind to the rage rising inside me. She had no idea. She believed it was just another prank. Another throwaway comment that would fade into the background like all the others. Yet she was wrong. As dessert was served, I barely touched my meal. Harriet kept cracking jokes. Cassandra kept sipping her wine, and the rest of the guests pretended not to notice the shift in my demeanor. Maybe they thought I was just tired. Maybe they assumed I'd shake it off like I always did. But I wasn't tired. I was done. When the last plate had been cleared and the guests started filing out, I stood by the door, thanking everyone for coming. Cassandra, of course, was still in high spirits, hugging Harriet and laughing like the night had been fantastic. Adam clapped me on the shoulder before leaving, his expression unreadable, I could tell he had caught on to something, maybe not the full extent of my fury, but enough to realize that I wasn't fine. "See you later, dude," he whispered. I nodded, forcing a tight-lipped smile. The last of the guests left, and eventually, it was just me and Cassandra. She stretched her arms leisurely, inhaling with delight. "That went well," she mused, moving toward the kitchen. "Harriet was hilarious tonight." I didn't answer. Instead, I turned, walked into the dining room, and began gathering the empty dishes. My movements were slow, deliberate, my mind racing with thoughts. Cassandra had no idea. She had no clue that tonight had been a turning point, that something inside me had shifted, that I was done playing along. As I placed the dishes in the sink, I made a silent vow to myself. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The house was quieter now, the kind of stillness that comes after guests leave, when the warmth of company is replaced by the buzz of the dishwasher and the faint crackle of a dying candle's wick. I stood in the kitchen, stacking plates with a calmness that didn't match the storm brewing inside me. Across the room, Cassandra hummed softly while wiping down the countertops. She seemed content, pleased with herself, like she had just wrapped up a fantastic performance. Tightened my jaw. She truly didn't think twice about it, did she? I replayed her words in my mind. Nothing to be thankful for in bed. The way she had thrown it out so carelessly, like it was nothing, like I was nothing. The way Harriet had burst into laughter, egging her on, while the rest of the table pretended not to see how I had gone still. How I had grabbed my glass just a touch too tight, and yet here she was, humming, tidying up, as if she hadn't humiliated me in front of a room full of people. I took a slow breath, deciding how I wanted to handle this. I wasn't a man who yelled, didn't believe in explosive fights or meaningless arguments, but something about tonight was different. Something in the way she had laughed at my expense, with no regard for how it made me feel, had flipped a switch inside me, and for the first time in years, I wasn't willing to just let it go. I laid a dish down with a little more force than necessary. It clinked loudly against the counter, finally catching Cassandra's attention. She looked up, blinking in slight surprise. "You okay?" I turned to her, resting my hands on the edge of the sink. "Do you even know what you said tonight?" She frowned. "What? At dinner?" "That sentence about having nothing to be thankful for in bed." Cassandra shrugged, rolling her eyes, with a dismissive laugh. "Oh, come on, Mark, it was just a joke." There it was, that same tone, that same flippant dismissal she always used. I let out a slow breath. A joke, at my expense, and in front of everyone. She sighed, already bored of the conversation. "You're being sensitive. It wasn't that serious." I studied her, the way she disregarded it so casually. And in that moment, I knew. I wasn't angry. I was done.